My name is David Kahne. I'm a music producer and mixer and do some arranging and scoring and stuff, and been doing it for quite a while, working with some really good artists. My three favorite records: Begin to Hope by Regina Spektor, the Sublime album, Paul McCartney, Memory Almost Full.
Pretty good records.
It's hard to pick.
Yes.
Every moment I seek resonance, and when that happens, it's a good feeling. The same 12 notes and the fact that they create their own resonance. It's something that when I was signed as an artist, I realized I didn't have, and that's why I quit. And I always seek out for it to be resonant, not only in the artists, but in the gear, in the acoustics of the room. There's always a sum is greater than the parts. So Buckminster Fuller, when he invented the geodesic dome, he has a series of triangles, and if you add up the number of triangles on a dome and multiply it times 180, you get the angular volume of the triangle, that dome. And if you imagine a sphere at the center point of each one of the places where the triangles meet, you get a sphere, and if you add up the number of spheres and multiply times 360, you get the spherical volume of the dome. And if you subtract those from each other, you always get 720 degrees, even if the dome is as big as the planet Earth or as a baseball. The reason I bring that up is because he said the 720 was the missing piece where everything kept moving. And if you put the 720 back into the dome, it would become infinite.
And how do you link that to music?
Because music has always, there's always some growth or some movement part to it that when it's there, when it feels like something's moving and always constantly changing. And I don't mean the chords, I mean just the sound of it in general, then it's resonant to me. And that's, when I had that metaphor, it kind of made it, that created a great metaphor for what it was that I physically felt.
So you've been making music for a minute and a half, 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe 3. And the process has changed, right, over the years?
Yes.
Do you miss the big studio environment?
I miss some parts of it, some parts I don't miss. Doing a symphony orchestra and having the clarinet player being out of tune. And you're spending $30,000 and you have to go tell him that you're gonna not have him lay out and then you replace it later. And there's it had its downsides. Just same with the labels. There was weird stuff going on then and there's weird stuff going on now. But I like the personal, because it's still seeking the same thing by using, like say the remote recording is really fascinating in its own way. Using samples for orchestra and choosing the samples, the combinations, you're doing the same thing that you were, because you're still trying to go for resonance and you're still trying to create motion and keep things going for 3 minutes. Or for a score cue, when you're working against vocal, it's, you're sitting there at 3 in the morning and you're trying to watch the timing and you pull it back a couple of milliseconds and it works all of a sudden. So it's still, because it's music and it's the AI hasn't replaced the actual atmosphere of the planet Earth. It's still the same resonance, and I like that. That still feels the same. I always feel claustrophobic, and I use them to check panning, but they always felt extreme, and I wasn't getting the movement together. And I understand that if you're mixing for somebody that only listens on headphones, that's an environment. But so I would check it, but for the most part, I didn't work on them. I felt like I was encapsulated in something. The big reveal I had was, I put them on, I thought, oh, these sound different, and they were really comfortable. And I didn't feel closed in at all, but I felt like it was happening inside in a lot of ways. And I was working and I realized that I'd had them on for 30 minutes and I had never done that. And I took them off and it sounded like my speakers. And then I put them back on and that was a big moment. That was the first time that ever happened. I don't know why they sound that way, but that's the only time I've ever had that feeling. I feel that it has affected the music mixing process because it has to be taken into consideration. And when I do something and I do a mix, or say something for a film, which I'm doing a lot more of, which is quite complicated, and speaking of which, the listening environment, it's going to get blown up, or it's going to be only on headphones on somebody's phone or laptop. So I always check to make sure that it works, and I do that partly with my mastering person because he's a great Atmos guy and beyond. And I should also mention that I worked in a lot of immersives, so talk about the opposite of headphones. But with all the panning and stuff that you have to do in the immersive rooms, it's really fascinating when you do it in the headphones and try to simulate it. And I actually found like I could do that when I was working on the last project, the Ocean Project. When I did it on the headphones, I was able to figure some stuff out that I tried down there, and it worked because it felt like it was more open. But I do think it's affected it. The thing is, though, that the vocal performance and the songwriting that still has to work, and it could work in all environments. And the one thing that the headphones in the production process now, the term I use for it is it's a bigger haystack with the same number of needles in it. But whether I'm looking for it on, say, some headphones or my phone playing back, it still speaks out to me, and a good song seems to come across. Now, I'm deciding if it's a good song for me, and maybe something that would be a good song for somebody else, but there's still, in every genre, there's stuff that's more resonant, both culturally and acoustically, that people will get whether it's on the phones or the speakers.